Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to simplify the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. At the time that you'll be listening to this episode, there will be less than 40 days until Christmas comes. And I want to chat with you a little bit in today's episode about how do we go about finishing the year off strong. For many of us, when we start to get to this time of the year, we start to wind down. And I want to encourage you to save your winding down, to save your rest between Christmas and New Year. Now is the time to finishing off strong. So this process I want to share with you is a process that I went through with my community influencer members on one of our group calls. I want you to imagine, or I want you to think about, it's Christmas Day, 2022. And you're sitting there with a big smile on your face and you're thinking about how much you've achieved in this last 40 days. What is it that you've done? Think about it for a moment as you're driving along or working out, walking the dog, whatever you're doing right now. Fast forward yourself into the end of the year, Christmas time, 2022. What would need to have happened for you to feel like you've finished the year off really strong? Another way to answer this same question is, what is it that you've been putting off? What is it that you wanted to get done this year, but it keeps on going from the top of the to-do list, it keeps on sliding down, no matter how much you attempt to get started or things continue to pop up in the way. What is it that you want to get done? Now, it's important that you actually think about something for this process to be both powerful and helpful for you. I want you to take a couple of moments and get really clear around, i.e., what would it be for you to feel like you've finished the year strong? Or what is it that you've been holding yourself back from doing as well? Now, the next question I want you to ask yourself, and maybe you'll be able to come up with the answer really quickly. Why haven't you done this yet? What is it that's been getting in the way? So one of the community influencer members that we did a bit of work with the other day, what he wanted to get done was there was a bunch of procedures and policies that he wanted to clear up in his office, streamline them, and really start to lay some foundations for some really strong systems. We often don't do this in chiropractic. We are small businesses, or we are businesses in general, but we really behave, really quite amateurish. Even if we're doing really great with the care that we deliver, we don't have systems in place for how we run lots of the operational procedures in our practice. This should be something that you should be working on, whether it's between now and the end of this year, or whether it be in 2023. Systems, reproducible systems. If you feel really scared about bringing on new staff, or if you haven't been able to bring on new staff, the chances are you don't have really great systems in place. This particular chiropractor just needed to update all of them. It had been a number of years before he'd updated them. And so that was what he wanted to get done. And when he started to ask himself, why had this not been done? Then there are a whole bunch of reasons that popped up for him. Many other things continued to get in the way for him. He wasn't quite sure where to even begin. He hadn't updated these systems for a number of years. He was a little bit scared about what he would find when he would dive in there. There are a number of different procedures and systems that he was running at the office in terms of almost all different patients had different rules for them. And he was a bit scared about, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to be able to bring this all into one streamlined system? And how will I deal with the patients that maybe they might kick up a stink with regards to this? And so what he did is he went to list out all of the reasons why he wasn't able to get this done. So think about it. What are the reasons that are stopping you from getting this done? After we'd written out all of these reasons, I then asked him a question. I said, how does it feel when you think the thought that, I don't know how to do this? How does it feel when you notice that this continues to, other things jump in the way that are other priorities? How do you feel when you feel like you can't do this and you don't even know where to start? Now, we have a bunch of thoughts in around why this can't be done. Now, we do everything in our life. This is really important, and you've heard me talk about this before. We do everything in our life for a feeling, okay? So we buy a new car because of the feeling that we think it'll get us. Now, we think that we're buying a new car because of transport. We think we buy that dress because, basic needs of clothing and stuff like that. But we buy these things because of the feeling that we will get from them. Now, at their very most basic, let me sidestep for a while here. This was kind of an interesting thought experiment that my friend Martin Harvey shared with me recently. And Martin said that he got it from a Dan Brown book. Dan was talking about, if you think about it for a moment, if it was the end of the world and you were the only one person left and you had access to everything, you could have whatever car you wanted, wear whatever clothes you wanted, live wherever you wanted, it's unlikely that you drive around in a convertible Ferrari all the time. Okay, so they look great, but they're uncomfortable, they're noisy. They're not the most convenient car for you to drive around with. Would you be wearing Chanel all the time, or would you kind of kick back in some pretty comfy clothes? We buy these things because of a feeling that we think that we will get from them. And if there aren't people to impress, then we go back to the very basics. And so it's really important for us to understand just how much our feelings have an impact on our behavior. Okay, so I'm going to expand on this in a little bit there too. So I was asking this particular client in terms of how did he feel when he thought of these thoughts? And the feelings that came back to him were a mixture of, sometimes he felt angry with himself for not being able to do it. He felt stressed. He felt disappointed himself because he wanted to get this done for a long time and it continued to slide down the priority list there too. He felt confused. And so I then mirrored back to him. I said, when you're feeling angry and confused and stressed and disappointed, what do you find yourself doing when you feel those emotions as you're listening to me now? Because probably these are similar emotions that are holding you back from doing the things that you want to get done by the end of the year. How do you behave when you feel this way? Most of us, what we want to do is we procrastinate, we try and hide. What we do, because these feelings feel so terrible, is that we want to go for a dopamine hit somewhere elsewhere. And so that might be goofing around on social media. What this particular chiropractor likes to do is he loves to learn. And so what he'll do is he'll get into learning new things, new techniques, better understanding how the body works. He's a brilliant chiropractor, one of my favorite human beings. And that's what he does. Now, here's the tricky thing when it comes to these forms of distraction. In fact, in the coaching work that I do, we refer to this as buffering, is we can distract ourselves or we can procrastinate in two different ways. They're really obvious forms of procrastination. Social media, eating might be one, watching televisions, but some of us are a lot more sophisticated than that. And so this particular chiropractor, he was procrastinating in ways that almost looked impressive. He learnt new things. He bought new courses. He learnt new techniques. And so it looked impressive from the outside. In fact, he told himself he was doing something important and that these more important things started to getting in front of working their way up the to-do list there too. But in actual fact, what he was doing is he was distracting himself from the work that needs to be done. So even things like exercise, getting out and going for a walk, going to the gym, reading a book, these, while they might be really great habits for you, but if we're doing these habits because we're wanting to distract ourselves from what needs to be done, then maybe they are procrastination as well. And so what we realized here is there was an outcome that this chiropractor wanted to have, some policies and procedures being done. When he thought about getting that done, the thoughts that he had were heading towards feelings of overwhelm, of confusion, of anger, of disappointment, and that those feelings ultimately were having him not get any closer. And so the next step that we need to do is, if we want to get the outcome here, is that we need to go through and see if we can rewrite that story, okay? So there is a model that I teach, a model that came from Brooke Castillo, a wonderful life coach. And she says there are circumstances. And so the circumstance in this is the office policies and procedures. There are thoughts that we have around it, and depending on the thoughts that we have, these thoughts can ultimately lead us towards feeling inspired and energized and motivated, or in this chiropractor's case, the thoughts that he was having and he was telling himself were actually leading to him feeling angry and disappointed and frustrated. And then our feelings always lead towards our actions, okay? So he procrastinated and our actions lead towards our results, okay? So we have circumstances, then we have feelings. So we have circumstances, then we have thoughts, and then after the thoughts we have feelings, then our feelings drive our actions, and our actions drive our results. And so if you want to have a great result at Christmas time, you need to start thinking about your thoughts. Now, I want to share another little model that I have learned recently from Gabor Mate. I hope I'm saying that right. I've been listening to a lot of interviews that he's been having recently around a book called The Myth of Normal. And he talks about how we unwind through some of these traumas that we have, whether they be just traumas of thoughts in this situation or whether they be bigger traumas that we've had that stem back to when we were, things happened to us in our childhood. He says the first thing we need to do is, these are 4 R's that he shares. The first one he talks about is reclaim. And by what he means when he talks about reclaim is that we need to work out and tell ourselves it's not the truth. So these were all stories that our chiropractic friend was having before about his office policies and procedures, and he was telling them to me like they were the truth, that he didn't have time, he didn't know where to start, He wasn't sure how he was going to deal with all the patients. Another one was, what if he gets rid of some things that he might need down the track? And the truth of the matter is, he has solutions for all of those. These were just excuses. These were just stories he was telling ourselves. And sometimes the stories we're telling ourselves might really feel like they're true. If the reasons why you're not moving in the direction you want to move, if they feel really true to you, then the question I often ask when I'm coaching these situations is this story moving you closer to where you want to go? And if the answer is yes, then I encourage you to keep a hold of it. But if this story is holding you back, then I want to encourage you to investigate, is there a new story you could tell yourself that might be more empowering? So this new story here, this chiropractor wanted to tell himself, is that he could absolutely find a way to simplify these procedures. That, if he did happen to get rid of and triage some data there too, there would be always a way to find it back. He was needing to tell himself that business is something that he's good at, or that he's learning to be good at. He was telling himself that he's good at doing difficult things. I always like the idea of the story to tell myself that everything is figure-outable, because that gets me into a mindset of being able to find answers to things too. So what is it that you need to reclaim? What are the beliefs that you need to reclaim that will actually move you closer to the goal that you want to have at Christmas time? The second thing Gabor Mate talks about too is that we need to reattribute. And reattribute, he says, we need to find out, where is this really coming from? What is the story underneath all of this? And when I asked this question to this beautiful chiropractor before, I said, what is this really all about? Why are you not getting this done? You're a very, very capable man. And he answered very quickly. He said, because I feel like I'm not good at business. So I'm a very good chiropractor. I'm great with people. I'm very good at helping my patients get a result. But he has a story that he's not good at business. And this came from lots of bits and pieces that built up over time. And many of these stories are rooted ultimately in levels of self-worth as well. Now, here's the interesting thing. 25 years a chiropractor. He's run his own business that time. Has literally had in excess of 100,000 appointments. He's brilliant at what he does. He deals with really complicated cases. Technically a very, very profound person. Proficient is the word I'm after. He's profound also, but technically very proficient. I said to him, has there ever been a time that you've missed your rent? No. Ever been a time you've not paid your staff? No, absolutely. And so we all know that most businesses don't survive the first year, let alone the first 5, and he's managed to get through 25 years. Be incredibly well respected in his community. Now, are there things that he could do to make his business bigger and more profitable? All those things, yes, there's always improvement. But he had this story that he's not a good business person. That was what was underneath a lot of this. And as he said, that was really quite an aha moment for him as well. The next thing that we need to do after we reattribute, find out maybe where this is coming from, is we need to refocus. We want to go about believing a new thing. We want to believe a new story as well. What would be a better story for him to say? Now, the first story that he wanted to tell himself afterwards is, I'm great at business. And I thought that would be a good story to tell yourself. If we're telling ourselves a new story, then one of the things that we want to check in with is it believable? So I said to him, I want you to think for a moment. Don't answer this question right away. I want you to tell me what your body tells me. And I said, are you a good business person? 10 out of 10 is, yes, I absolutely am. And 0 out of 10 is not. Give me a number. And he came back with a 5 or 6 out of 10. If we can't get our believability on something at least up north of 7, then we're not going to move forwards. And so he wants to believe that I'm a good business person, but he can't just grab a hold of it. This is why just affirmations for the sake of affirmations don't work. We have to build our way up to them, and we can build our way up to them by many different ways. We went for a couple of different statements for this lovely guy. The first one we tried on is, I'm open to the idea that I can easily run my practice, or I'm open to the idea that business is easy. And when he just put that bridge statement in front of it, I'm open to the idea, immediately went from a 5 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. So that's what we need to do sometimes there as well. Or the other statement that we put together in terms of the refocus was, running a business is difficult, but I'm good at doing difficult things. So I said, feel that statement. How does that feel? Now, these were both 8 out of 10s. And so the new statement underneath, the refocus that he had here, is this idea, I'm open to the idea that I can easily run my business, that I'm a good business person. And the second one he took on is that running a business is difficult, but I'm good at doing difficult things. What are the refocus statements, if you were to believe a new thing, that would be a story that would drive you towards the outcome that you want to have for this Christmas? What are the stories that you could take on? and check in with yourself. What is your believability on that? Okay. I think this is a kinesthetic question we ask ourselves. Let your body tell, because your mind will want to say yes, but our mind will trick us all the time. We want to actually check in deeper with regards to that too. The next thing to do, or the next R that Gabor talks about, is we want to reevaluate. So we want to reevaluate and ask ourselves, because when we're wanting to take on a new belief and therefore a new behavior, there are two things. We get excited about the outcome we're going. I'm going to get my office policies and procedures done. What are the wonderful things you're going to do? We can think about that as the carrot out in front of us. We're motivated by positive changes, but we're probably more motivated to move away from pain than we are to move towards pleasure. Most people are. And by somewhere around a factor of 2, depends on where you read as well. And so we want to actually come back in and ask ourselves, what is the cost of this old belief that we've had? And this is the reevaluate. What's been the value of this old belief, or the negative value as well? What's been the cost of this old belief? What's been the impact? And when we dived in and we asked this wonderful chiropractor this question, he was able to see the impact it has had on him as a chiropractor, being able to serve more people, the impact it's had on him at home as a husband, as a dad, because instead of being home and being present, he was often worried about the practice. He hadn't put the systems in place that allowed it to really run itself, the procedures, the policies, and so it was always on his mind. He was not showing up as present. It impacted the amount of spare time he had in there, so therefore his health also. So he was able to see the impact across all areas of his life that this outdated and old story was telling himself, which is, I'm not good at business. Now, after going through those 4 R's, and we check back in again with this idea of what do you want to get done for Christmas? I want to get my office policies and procedures done. And then we check in what needs to be done with that too. What happens almost immediately, there's a freedom, there's an enthusiasm. Because if each of those stories come up again, there too, we now have an antidote for that. And that antidote is a story we tell ourselves, a belief, a new operating system, which is, I'm open to the idea that running a business is easy. I'm good at this. And if difficult things come up, that's not a problem because I'm good at doing difficult things as well. Now, when we're going through and thinking about this future, one of the things that comes up, and this has been a new idea that I've been thinking about, is our mind immediately goes into a what-if conversation. The what-if conversation is, well, what if I try and get all these office policies and procedures in place and it doesn't work? What if I can't do it, Angus? What if I can't find the time? You're getting me excited about this dream by Christmas and it's less than 40 days. What if I can't pull it off? What if my life gets incredibly busy? Or what if I try to do this and I'm just not capable of doing it? Now, it makes sense to ask these what-if questions because they're part of what's been the development of our nervous system that allows us to move away from danger and protect ourselves, move towards survival and comfort. What-if questions are really great. But for some reason, what happens is that most of us don't ask the full gamut of what-if questions. Because also, along with asking what if it doesn't work, the question I want you to ask yourself is, what if it does work? What if I apply myself and develop a new belief system and I get new feelings of motivation, of excitement, of enthusiasm that has me take action towards the outcome that I want, and I get the result? What if once I get my office policies and procedures in place, that there's a smoothness and an ease that allows me to serve people with greater efficiency, effectiveness, and profitability? What if I'm able to achieve this thing that at the very start I talked about that would have me finish off the year in a really strong, powerful, and grateful way? I think it's important that when we ask the what-if questions, that we ask the full range, the what-if questions as well. So folks, that's some thoughts for you on how to finish the year strong. Remember, in review, what is it that you really want to have happen between now and Christmas? Why is it not happening? What are the stories that you're telling yourself? Stories, beliefs, they might feel like they're true, okay? Why are you telling yourself that this can't happen? Now, when you think these thoughts, how does it make you feel? And when you feel those feelings, what do? You spend time goofing around. So how can you start to think some different thoughts about it? Do you need to use some bridge statements like Rob did, which might be, hey man, setting this goal or getting this goal is difficult, but I'm good at doing difficult things. Maybe you tell yourself the Marie Forleo statement of everything is figure-outable. Or maybe you put that bridge statement at the beginning is, I'm open to the idea that I can learn how to do something as well. And then you might want to go through those 4 R's that Gabor Mate talked about. You need to reclaim. You need to tell yourself, it's a belief that's holding me back from this. You need to reattribute, find out where is this really coming from anyway. Refocus. What is the new belief you're going to think about as well? and then reevaluate, take some time to think about what has been the cost of this. So where we've got the carrot out in front of us with where we want to go, but we also need to see the pain that this old and outdated belief has had as well. If you want to let me know what your goals are until Christmas, if you want some form of accountability or assistance along the way, then I'd love to help. And if you'd like to be having more of these conversations, if you'd like to have access to me to coach you a couple of times a week, not only with your marketing, but also to help get your mindset out of aligned as well, then you should come and join Community Influencer. It's a fantastic bunch of chiropractors from around the globe who are implementing the marketing, who are managing their mind and growing their practice. I love this group of people. Peeps, until next time, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. I look forward to seeing you back here in the next episode. Take care. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer group coaching program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.